Today I'm going to be replacing the alternator on my 2008 Altima, and I didn't really want to, but I had the battery die while I was sitting in a parking lot one day and had to get it jumped. Now it's been running okay since then, but I've got a voltmeter that shows it's running, putting out like 13.1 or 2 or 3 volts, so it's a little on the low end. So we're going to try to replace the alternator and show you everything you need to know about that. Now this is my alternator, or my new one that I'm going to have in it, and I got it from Amazon. You can get what look like to be some decent ones for about $130 to $150. So I picked one that had a good bit of rating on it as far as customer rating, and we'll see how this goes. If you want to buy one from an auto parts store, it will actually cost a lot more, and of course if you want to have a mechanic do it, it'll cost even more than that. Now there are some videos out there that show you about replacing the alternator on an Altima, but they all leave out what I consider to be the most important part, and that is dealing with the drive belt. And what you really need, the secret to that, is this tool right here. This is a serpentine belt tool, and in its most basic simple form like this, it should cost around $25. And it should come with these sort of wrenches right here in 13, 14, and 15 millimeters. Now in order to move the tension pulley for the belts, that's the big part of this here, we need to have something like this, and you need a long reach to get in like this to it, and you'll need a very, very sort of narrow socket on it. Now it has a 3/8 inch piece here. You could put any sort of socket on this, but usually you need something very narrow to reach down there. For the Altima, you need the 14 millimeter, and that's what we're going to use. So you can buy one of these, or if you have a friend that's a mechanic or works on cars, you should have something like this. But this is the key. You don't have to jack it up or remove the wheel or do crazy things, but you'll need this to remove tension from the belt. Now in order to get to the alternator, which is of course under here, we're going to have to remove some stuff and make some room. First thing I'll do is just remove this overflow from the radiator here, and you can remove, there's a little simple bolt here, a little 10 millimeter, and we're just going to pull this out, there we go, and move it out of the way so we can see the belt and all that stuff there. Okay, so that's just out of the way. Just set it right there. We're also going to have to take off the engine cover, because the alternator, or this little plastic thing here, because the alternator is right there. So we'll have to get rid of, take these little bolts here out, remove the cover, and see what we see with the alternator. So with these little bolts removed here, it's a simple process. There's actually a little Allen nut head right there for that. So that's probably what it's going to be. For some reason mine has a little 10 millimeter as well. I guess it got lost somewhere along the way or changed. Just need to lift off this engine cover and kind of get this out of the way for the moment there. Lift off the engine cover, and this is the alternator right there. But just as important here is we've got the tensioner pulley, and so that's what we need to take care of. Here's the pulley from the alternator, and there's a lot of tension on this belt here, of course, and so we've got to take the tensioner pulley and get the tension off of it. So we've got another pulley right here, and the one we're looking for is actually right there underneath it, right down there. We need to move that, and that is that's what that tool is for. Now, I think a two-person job is the best way to handle this. So you can have one person take and push that pulley forward, and the other person can slip the belt off here. So let's try that. Okay, so we got the tool here, and the thing to do is to look down and put it on that nut. And of course, it's just going to be a 14 millimeter nut there, and you want to get it on. I was having a hard time seeing what was happening from up there. So we're under we're under the car here. I pulled away the liner from the passenger side wheel, and this is the tensioner. This is the tensioner right there. So that's where that piece needs to go on. Okay, so there it is. We're going to try and guide this down here, and the idea is to put this on the nut. So I'm guiding it here to try and get it on there. So what I'm ending up doing here is I just stuck a standard 14mm socket right there, and we're trying to get this this tool and just kind of slip it on there. And get it on the nut, because the little wrench connection wasn't quite fitting in, because it's sort of countersunken really deep in there. So let's see if there's a way to do this and kind of pop it right there on that bolt. Okay, so now it's in. Now I was having a hard time getting that sort of wrench end on this bar to fit on there, because the nut's kind of countersunk and the wheel goes around it. What I've done is I've just got a standard 14mm socket, not an extremely short one, just kind of a standard one, and I was able to wedge it in there. And so now I've got the bar right here, and I've got that 14mm socket on the nut of the tensioner. And so the thing to do is actually to take the bar, and you're kind of pushing it toward the front of the car, which is going to pivot that tensioner pulley, pivot it forward toward the firewall this way here, and then that's going to make it so that the belt is looser. See that right there? This belt's actually loose, and some ideas. I'm going to try and slip this off the pulley of the alternator, and that's how I'm going to slip this off here. So I want you to push it a little bit more, but we can see I've definitely loosened the belt, and there's some actual slack. And now the idea is to try and get that off here. See the slack? And let's just try and slide this off. It's got grooves that are stuck in the grooves of this pulley for the alternator, and that's just making it a little bit difficult. I'm just going to try and see how much I can push that forward and then slip this off. But there I am, removing the tension on the serpentine belt. So there, I was able to slip the belt off. It was kind of tough and it wasn't extremely loose, but there the belt is off. And with the belt off, it should be a simple issue now to replace the alternator. But that's the trick. With this bar is pushed as far forward here as it can, moving the tensioner pulley that way. But I found that the trick was to use an actual socket instead of the wrench that came with it. So now it just simply replace the alternator, I hope. So electrical connection's out, 2 bolts out, and it's all free. However, I can't really move it. I can't seem to get it out because of this bracket that its top is screwed into here. And so I see those 2 bolts right there. And so I'm thinking that I might go ahead and take those out and remove this bracket so I can just lift it out and be a little simpler. But I'm seeing those 2 bolts there just don't give me quite enough room to lift it up out this way. And it's out. You know, that was actually not easy. This bracket here kept getting in the way, and that's where it bolts on the top. You see it bolts top right there. Top bolt goes in there. That was just getting in the way and not letting it out. So what way do we have to turn it to pull it out?
Something like on its side.
On its side.
I think.
All right. And I also removed this little bolt here so that I could take this a little hose in the radiator and just push it up out just a little bit, just a tiny bit more, and that got this out here. I thought I was going to have to remove those two bolts in there, and those were really stuck on, so I had some penetrating oil, but better to not have to do that. Also, this dipstick in the way really causes problems. But yeah, getting that out was rough. Okay, now what about getting the new one in? So here's the old alternator, and here's the new one that we're hoping is going to do the job. It actually has its own little nut right here, so I don't have to worry about reusing that one. There's the electrical connection. We'll have to put that new little bracket right in here. That's really just to kind of hold that cable on top. But this is it. So we're going to try and get it back in, and this will be the tricky thing, because here's the top bolt to line up. That'll be simple. But the bottom one, you can see that long bolt has to come through here and go all the way here into this sort of captured nut right there. So the bottom part might be tricky. So we're just going to try and get this in and wiggle it around until it fits and the bolts go in. So obviously we're going to start with that bottom bolt. But this is something where having an extra set of hands may certainly help. Actually getting it back in was pretty easy. Barely an inconvenience. Okay, so there it is back in. I'm looking for right there. That's where that bottom bolt has to go. In here. And we've got to line it up to go through the hole right there. So that's going to be our next challenge, is just to kind of push things into place. And once that long bolt is in, I think we're on the home stretch now. Okay, there's the belt slipped on the new alternator. Now this was not the easiest thing in the world. In fact, it may have been close to the harder part of the job, for me anyway. Just going to look down and make sure things are looking okay here on this. But the thing I decided to do was to loosen up these bolts here a bit, and even take this one out. And that allowed enough play to where with the belt loose, I could slip it on this pulley, put it in place, and then put this bolt in. So once I tighten the bolts up, they should all be where it needs to go. So that's going to be my trick, is to loosen these bolts a bit to give yourself a little bit of play, and that'll make it much easier to slip on this bolt. Alright, and there's my dog in the background. Hope you enjoyed that. So everything's back in place here. This is that bracket that I took off from the original alternator and put on here. I think its purpose really was to maybe hold this cable. There's a bit of a plastic bit here, but it looks like the top has broken off. So maybe ideally that would have held this cable right in there. But that's about all it does, and mine doesn't do anything, so you don't actually need this piece. But it will just kind of has an 8mm bolt right there. Again, this is from the old alternator, but it's all in there. Not too hard of a job. If I can do it, I think anyone can. One of the trickier parts was actually getting the alternator out. But the secret to doing this really is have that serpentine belt bar, get it on the tensioner pulley down there. And it really does, I think, require two people to have one person pull on it and get the tensioner off, or tensioner moves so the tension is off the belt. Have another person, get this in and out. Two people will really help. But the trick even there is, even with as much tension off the belt as you can get, to loosen this top bolt, and you can pivot it in just a little bit, and that will give you even a bit more space with the slack on the belt to get it in and out much more easily. So that's the trick, is to loosen the belts, and especially this one. And then it's not too bad. And you've got yourself a brand new functioning alternator, just for the price of the alternator and a bit of your time.